I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. Now, up until this point, I have been building my entire base and idea around doing research to basically learn about this Chaos Guardian that I've been hearing about. And I think we're almost there. I've almost had a eureka moment. I've almost made it to that point. But today, I think we should dive into the production of Antimatter, which I think is going to be our final step before we actually take on said Chaos Guardian. And I think that's going to be for good reason, because Antimatter, well, it can be scaled up pretty big and can be done very quickly, but I've never typically done it that way. And where it'll be produced in like a few minutes. Instead, it usually takes a couple of hours to produce antimatter pellets, at least with the setups that I've set up recently. That's because antimatter is a pretty slow process and something that you definitely want to set up as soon as possible. In my case, I've kind of postponed it a little bit, but I should be able to get an antimatter setup that can produce a pellet at least every 40 minutes. Now, like I said, this has all been done in preparation for getting ourselves access to this Chaos Guardian. I'm not quite sure where its location's at, but I think after we do some research on antimatter, I think it'll become a little bit clearer. Or at least that's my role-playing idea that's going along with this. Of course, I have fought the Chaos Guardian multiple times in other mod packs, but in this pack specifically, there's going to be some fun ways that we can do it. Hint, hint at the mecha bow here. I'm kind of excited to get to try this out because the mecha bow, unlike all of the other gear, by the way, can be enchanted. And I'm pretty excited to see how that works. Now, I guess without further ado, let's actually get to work on how we're going to start producing antimatter. Now, we already have all of the foundations that are required in order to set this up. So today is essentially just going to be setting up the multi-block and getting power sent to it and start to feed our waste instead of feeding our waste into these to produce these byproducts. Instead, we'll just take all of the waste and send it directly into our SPS, which is what we're going to be building today. Now, SPS is a very fun word. It basically stands for supercritical phase shifter and is what is going to turn our polonium, I believe, I think it's polonium, into antimatter. And just to make sure that it is actually polonium, yes, it is polonium that is converted into antimatter. Now, the interesting part about how we get polonium is it just comes from our solar neutron activator and the nuclear waste that we're already generating. That is what we're going to be able to use. Now, all of this beautiful stuff that you see right here is going to allow us to actually make this. That, and of course, HDPE sheets, which I made clear a few episodes ago that we were going to need a bit of in order to make this as well. And just in case you missed out on that episode, this right here is my sheet production. And I have like 44,000 in here, but it also produces ethylene, which I was like, this is a nifty way to kind of store ethylene and bypass ethylene if you wanted to, for example, set up some gas burning generators and utilize it. Now, power is another huge thing that we have to keep in mind. And to be fair, power we're actually doing in one of my favorite ways possible, and that is through Industrial Foregoing's mycelial reactor. So if you missed that, essentially you automate 16 generators, just like you would the old school rainbow generator from Industrial Foregoing, or sorry, not Industrial Foregoing, from Extra Utilities too. And you'd get all those running and it powers this one block, which in my case is now generating 25 million RF per tick. Yes, you heard that right. 25 million, which is a lot to play with. Now, Mekanism can, of course, generate way more power than that through, for example, utilizing the steam if you were to set up max size reactors and things like that. But I kind of want to save this up because there's another way that I want to generate power later on that is going to involve diving deeper into Mekanism, and that is going to be through fusion, which I think is a really, really cool way to automate because you essentially use water. And those setups have the potential for you to generate between 20 million RF per tick all the way up to over 200 million RF per tick, which is a lot of power. Now, to be able to make some of the stuff from the SPS, essentially, we're going to need SPS casings. We're also going to need the SPS ports, lasers, and those are basically used to craft up those supercharged coils. And we're only going to really need one supercharged coil. We just don't have enough power to utilize more than one of those. Now, setting up the SPS is kind of a daunting process, and it definitely feels like it is the latest stage of anything that you'll do within the Mekanism mod. And it can be, like I said, daunting, and it was for me originally. But I've kind of learned that it's not the hardest part of getting all of this set up for the antimatter. The hardest part is honestly setting up your fission reactor. That bad boy right there is the most dangerous thing that you can put into your base. And so, yeah, if you already have it set up, you already have everything completed, and you already have everything managed in the back, you should be good. The only thing we're going to have to do is turn these off. So we'll just make sure that these are both shut off and not producing anymore. And in that case, we should be able to just route everything through these pressurized tubes directly into, for example, wherever we place our SPS. Now, another cool thing we can do is actually use applied energistics to carry our fluids around. But I found that it can be kind of slow unless you're using the highest tier applied energistics, like extended exporters and stuff. So in my case, I'm actually just going to use the pipes. I'm going to have the pipe sent underground underneath here, and it's going to route into the bottom of here, for example, or into what is going to be one of, what are these things called? I always forget the name of them. The solar neutron activator, right? Yeah. So once I have the solar neutron activator over here, that's where it's going to pipe to, and then that's going to pipe into the SPS. Now I keep saying what I'm going to do, and I haven't done anything yet. So I guess let's go ahead and craft all the components that we're going to need. Now the wiki recommends that you make 72 regular SPSs, and notice we're going to need some polonium. So let's go ahead and grab those polonium pellets. We have plenty of them. I do not have these just stored in my system. So I'm just going to place those in there. We should be good. And like I said, 72 is the magic number here. Oh, I need a few more. Thought I had enough. There we go. 72. Beautiful. So now that I have those are going to craft up real quick. And then I'm going to need 3 ports here. So we only need 3 to get started. And notice that used up some of our SPS cases. And the 72 actually accounts for the 12 that are needed for the 3 SPS ports. So this is what we're going to need here. And then we're also going to need the supercharged coil, just one of them. And this is actually what's going to break down the polonium even further into antimatter, or do a conversion. And I think outside of that, we just need to use reactor glass. Now I've tried using structural glass in the past, but I just recommend using reactor glass. It's just going to make things a little bit easier. And the amount we actually need for this, the exact amount, is 123. And that's pretty straightforward there. Now I'm going to start with the floor, and I'm going to have this raised up off the ground by 1. And I like to sort of show it looking like this. So we start off with a 3x3, and then we're going to add 1 block on the outside to each outer edge, just like that. Beautiful. And that right there is our main structure, and that's going to be how it's going to be laid out. And then we just need to line the outer edge with our SPS casing. Beautiful, just like this. Now every single side is going to reflect this. So if we keep in mind that that is one of our extra parts, then we know we need a 3x3 up here. And then we need 3 on the outside, 3 on this side, and 3 on this side. The same thing is going to actually happen all around this whole thing. And then we're just going to simply surround the edge. Now, once everything is surrounded like this, I just need to fill in the outer edges. Voila. And then we're going to have ourselves an SPS all ready to go. Well, kind of ready to go. We have the particles, but this isn't actually fully done. So the way that I actually want to handle our ports is I want to place a port right here. So we'll have this one. There's going to be a port in the top. This is typically where I like to give it power. And then in the back is where we're going to have our waste actually go in to be converted. So just like this. Now, we also still need to get the coil in here. And the coil, like I said, I like the top to be the power location. And so I just place the coil just like that. And that looks super duper clean. Oh, it's so nice. I did a little bit of decorating underneath here to, like I said, I wanted it to be like 1 block sort of up, so I could do a little bit of decorating on the bottom. And on the top, I added these illuminated panels, the really small ones, and it does light up the interior of this a little bit, which I thought was kind of nice. Now, how am I going to handle this? So I just need a hole in the ceiling, and I want to leave a 1 block gap for some piping. And I think I'm going to just send the material directly from the bottom. But it does need direct sunlight, so I'm going to place it right here, and that should be more than enough sunlight. And we shouldn't need more than one as of right now, but if you do have a bit of a larger setup, you may need at least 2 of them in order to keep up with the amount of polonium you may be producing. Or sorry, amount of waste you're producing to turn into polonium. Now on the solar neutron activator, I'm just gonna go ahead and start to configure the sides. And we just need to worry about the gases section. So I'll clear this out. The bottom's gonna be the input, and the back should be the output. And we should be able to hold our configurator to see that, just to make sure. Do I have my configurator on me? I do. So while holding that, we should be able to change this mode to gases, and we can see that the blue is the output, and then the red should be the input, which is on the bottom. And for this, I'm just going to stick with basic pressurized tubes. That's going to be fine for right now. If we need to upgrade them down the road for maybe some transfer speed, we can always do that. But I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that too much. And the way I'm going to drag this through, I think I'm going to route it across the side here. That's going to be like one of the best ways to handle it, I think. But I do want to take it to the edge here. So I'm going to get this dragged through here, just like this. And I'm going to actually route it through the edge on this side, and then do the same thing on the other side. And over here on this side, I'm just going to run this directly up the side like this, and it's going to tap in right here at the bottom. So this should be set up. Now I do have my SPS or my fission reactor turned off at the moment. So we're not going to see anything happening just yet. And that's for good reason. I don't want to make any mistakes. And now for this side, I also want to go ahead and just bring this up like so. And this should be set up as an input and should directly connect. You can see right here, that should be working. We also need to make sure that the gases tab, we have auto eject on, which we do. Looking very, very good. And on the front here, we can use our configuration tool. And let's see, we're going to have to change this mode, right? Do I just right click it? I'm pretty sure this has different modes. Yes, it does. I had to put it in items mode, not wrench mode, and shift right click. And you can see that turns it into output, which is perfect because this is going to be the output and where we're actually going to be receiving our antimatter. So now with all of that set up, we're almost ready to go. We're going to need a point to take from our main power network. And the way that I want to work with this is I want this to be a negative priority. And so what this is going to mean is that means all the power that we are producing should go to everything else that needs power that's on a higher priority. But whenever it goes to this one, this is going to basically be a lower priority, meaning that it will be the last in the list of everything that gets power to get power. Should work. I know we don't have everything directly connected, but we do have a point on our main system that controls our gates. So it should get power first, and then all the residual should go here. So that's sort of the way that this is going to work. And then on the limit, we can bypass limit. And whenever we set this to main, it should not drain all of our power. It should only send out what power we have. It should be sending way more than that. It is holding a limit here for some reason. Our main network should have it should have 25 million RF per tick to play with. Unless, oh, it's because this is not up and running yet. So I guess to get it up and running, let's go ahead and turn this back on. So that is going to start consuming our fissile fuel. And we want to make sure that this gets shut off. And that means that is going to let that build up with waste. That's already building up with waste. And that means all residual waste, once these are filled up, will start running through our pressurized tube. And that should start making its way into here. And which it is. We can now see we have polonium building up. And it does seem like we have a little bit of an issue for some reason. The transfer limit, maybe? Or maybe we don't have enough power. I'm gonna have to do some checking and make sure our 25 million is up and running. Well, that right there is definitely an issue. We need to make sure we're bypassing our limit back here on our mycelial reactor so we can actually pull out all of that power. I'm such a dork. So now back in our mechanism setup, yes, now we're definitely keeping up and we're burning through this pretty good. And we already have 10 millibuckets of antimatter produced. Now we're able to send all of that power, you can see right here. Now, of course, I also want to, I think, set this to -2. So the reason why I'm gonna go -2 here is because that will be even lower than our base. And I think I want myself, as the player, to be -1. That way we don't accidentally shut off anything in our base, making sure our base is a priority. Then we're next in line for priority. So yes, this is set to -1, which is already the way I had it set up. Now that's going to be -2. So now anything that doesn't go into us or doesn't go into our base will flow into that, which is one giant trash can for power, by the way. Now, something else we can kind of do is we can play around with the rate that we're actually burning through power if we really want to by setting a limit. And what we would kind of check is when this starts to fill up, and that would give us an indicator of how much power we actually need in order to, you know, handle all of this. So if I disable that limit, we'll see that that is building up. And so we can say, how about, let's see, 1 million, 1.8 million. Is that able to consume it all? Nope. So you just kind of keep going. Let's just say 5 million. What if, then we remove the 8. What if 5 million works? I mean, it might. And 5 million definitely works. So like we have so much to sort of play with here. Set it to 3 million, for example. And it looks like it's able to keep up at 3 million. So yeah, you can kind of play around with this. Of course, the more that we produce, the more we should be able to use. I think in this case, right, I can actually take this reactor a higher burn rate because I did up my machines. So I'm now feeding this more power, and this is actually producing 256, which we can't use 256 just yet. We actually can burn at a maximum with this size of 156. So let's try 100 on this. And that's getting pretty close to the danger point on this reactor here. Like we're getting up there. If I do like 120 or 110, like it will eventually get to the point where it becomes like too hot. And at that point is where we want to kind of watch out. It does seem like it's doing okay. We're still in the good. 125. Of course, we can always quickly scram this if it does start to take damage. If it does start to take damage, it will repair itself over time, by the way. So yeah, it's actually handling that. So let's do 130. Ooh, we're getting up there. Burn rate, 130. Our temperature's still doing great. And let's try 156. Let's just try its max that it can handle, and it's handling it just fine. So there we go. So we just max out whatever our machine can max out, which is 156 burn rate. I think we're producing 256 per tick. So we have more than enough. We could even set up another reactor, but I think this is going to be more than enough. And then we just go back and forth and we see, hey, are we producing too much? And we may need to give it more power. So let's just go 6 million. And 6 million is not enough. 7 million. Oh no. 7 million. Let's do 10 million. Was 10 million enough? Wow. Okay, let's just bypass it altogether. And okay, so we're actually exceeding our burn rate here. And we are producing, okay, there it finally drained. Okay, I was like, there's no way that, like, we're actually building up. So yeah, 10 million is easily able to keep up with that burn rate. This is all just trial and error, you know? You just kind of get to play around with the power settings and kind of play around with things and just let it kind of work. That's all the SPS is sort of about, is just working. Now, to actually produce the antimatter pellets, we're going to need a chemical crystallizer, and I like to just attach this to the face of the machine. So chemical crystallizer, until we at least get, you know, our basic things set up here. Let's see, antimatter, chemical crystallizer, and we'll do a gate. This doesn't really require anything crazy as far as power. And we should be able to place this here, and we can put, like I said, a gate on it to give it some power. And then we go to the input side, and under gases, which is all still a gas, we'll say input into the back. And I don't know if this is auto inputting. Yes, it is. You can see the antimatter is now inside here. And once it receives enough, a full bucket worth of antimatter, it is then going to produce 1 antimatter pellet. Now, I just did some quick math here, and at my current burn rate, we're producing about 1 millibucket every 3 seconds. So now if we're producing 1 antimatter every 3 or 1 millibucket every 3 seconds, we need to do like 1,000, which is how many millibuckets we need, times 3. That'll be 3,000, and then we divide that by 60. That should get us how many minutes? And so we will produce 1 antimatter every 50 IRL minutes at this particular burn rate, which is not far off from me building a little bit bigger scaled version of this. So just something to keep in mind, that we need a ton of power to even keep up with what we're doing right now. And so 10 million is roughly what it's taking to kind of hold this off. So we could double, but I don't think it's going to be worth it. I think instead it'll just give us some time to work on other things while this slowly starts to build up. And eventually we're going to have a creative source of this. Now, something to note later on when we go to make fading matter, just keep in mind, this is only going to actually need 5 millibuckets to do the operation. So it takes what, 3 seconds to make? So it'd be 5 times 3. So every 15 seconds, we would essentially be making a faded matter with this setup. And so, yeah, I don't think it's that big. I wasn't actually planning on this to be a very difficult part of the mod pack, and I wanted it to be definitely reachable. So having 5 millibuckets is exactly, in my opinion, very reachable, very, very doable. And it's going to be pretty fun. I think I'm pretty excited for getting to that point, especially since we do get access to a creative tank very, very, very soon. So as soon as we get access to our first final star, that's when we can get, like I said, a creative chemical tank. And yes, you can turn your creative chemical tank into antimatter. Very, very simply. And then you can really start to scale up some things. Now, with that up and running, it gives me a little bit of time to work on things that allow us to actually enhance our spawners. So there's Rosin and Tar, which are 2 things that are used to increase our spawner delay, and also Tar, which is utilized on our spawn delays as well. These are the 2 things that will allow our spawners to spawn a lot faster, but it is a little bit of a process that is required to get them started in the first place. So let's go ahead and work on Rosin first. So this essentially just needs to go through a fractionating still, and it produces rosin as a byproduct along with tree oil. So this is pretty straightforward, but to be able to get resin, which is what you use to make the rosin, you have to use an arboreal extractor. So let's go ahead and add that real quick. And then the best tree to use in this case is going to be for a spruce tree. You can see all of the values. Every operation, this is going to give 25 millibuckets versus the 15 that you have here. Now, my way I like to set this up is by using a single tree and have 4 different extractors on the single tree. So with a little bit of bone meal magic, there we go. We now have ourselves a tree, and I can start to place these in just like so. And they're already going to start working. You can see right there, they already show that they're good. But we can actually upgrade these to make them a bit faster, and that's where those Stellas are really going to come into play. And this is going to make the rate 12 times faster than it would normally be, which is honestly pretty darn slow. I mean, these things are very slow. Now, what this essentially does is I believe it's multiplying times 12 the base amount that you would get per operation. So the operation still, I think, takes the same amount of time. It's just that every time it does the operation now, you end up getting quite a bit more. And I accelerated this one just to make sure everything was working, and it definitely was. This one was at 36 and now jumped to the 470. Now, another issue that I think I just found out is that if there are more extractors like this per tree, then we run into another issue where it actually does take more time for the original one to work. Now, this is for a fertilizer slot, and there's a bunch of different fertilizers, but we actually get more. So if you use PhytoGrow, I think, in this slot, which we do have EMC on, let's see, PhytoGrow, this will actually give you 8 times or it'll be used up 8 times, but definitely gives you more resin per operation, or at least it should. Aha, and there it goes. Okay, so with that in mind, and with me knowing that, I might actually set up a couple more trees in here and just have this whole room filled with these trees. Now, to get the items in here, I think I'm going to use some item transporters like this. And if we hit PhytoGrow on here, we should be able to open that up. And there we go. We now have PhytoGrow going into these. Now, this is going to be pretty cool because I'm going to entangle all of these entangled blocks, and I should be able to pull the fluid out of these, and they should be able to go directly into here. So I'll just select this, and all of these entangled blocks right here can all be linked to this one holder for fluids. And then I can utilize fluid transporters, which work very much the same way, which will then send the fluid out and directly into here. That is super simple and very, very clean. I like that. Now, to get this operation done, I just simply need to entangle the top block up here to the same block that everything else was entangled to. And then we just set it up. We'll just say pull from the top, which should pull hopefully the fluid out of this, if it can pull fluids out of the entangled. Can it? Yes, beautiful. And then we'll output our fluids into this black hole tank, which is very nice. And I have the slots for cables back here. In the back on the byproduct here, we should be able to just send it through an importer, which will work very, very nice. So I guess Stella upgrades. We just need to upgrade this and make sure everything is kind of nice and max upgraded. And there we go. We have a ton of this being made, and it just, yeah, because of these max upgrades, oh my gosh, the speed at which this gets produced is insane. Now for the next setup, we're gonna need basically 3 fractionating stills, but we also need crude oil to be able to make the tar. Now the reason why I do want to use crude oil instead of going about it by using a pyrolyzer is because, and I'm thinking a little bit ahead here, if we take a look at how this can be produced, we notice that this is a byproduct from 2 different types of oil, heavy and light oil that get refined from crude oil. And refined oil, which is what we actually make and get tar as a byproduct from, refined oil has a use later on, which allows us to have superheated blaze burners just by feeding it refined oil. And later on down the road, we are going to need blaze burners that are superheated because we're going to need hyper experience, which is something I've never done, but it is going to be nice that we already have the infrastructure for this. Now I am going to need to use a hose pulley for this, but thankfully, because of the thermal being what we're in, this dimension that I made custom is full, as you can see, completely filled with crude oil, which was done intentionally for this very purpose. Now I should be able to do some offshore drilling here, or just slightly offshore, I guess you could say. I'm gonna go ahead and get the hose pulley cranked down like that. I need to get this hose pulley all the way down, and this is going to work, or should work, just like lava, and allow us to hopefully tap this fluid and give us an infinite amount of it. And I want this to be piped like this into an inner tank that I have dyed black. And we should be able to use a wrench here. And let's see. Is that transferring? It says transferring 15 milliseconds every tick. But this doesn't seem to be allowing us to pull that fluid out for some reason. Oh boy, I might have to get some Create goggles. Oh, it is 100% working. I was completely wrong. I just didn't see it actually pumping. But it is definitely pumping and is now sending that crude oil into this inner tank. I just have to make sure that I have this one chunk loaded, and that should be great. Let's head into our massive building over here. And now this setup should work very well. We should have an input into the top, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to output to the sides like this. And then we'll also probably have an output in the back, which is going to be for whatever byproduct we get from this, which I think is bitium. This is going to be input into the top, and is actually going to output to the side and also the back. The items are going to go to the back. So input, and then this is going to output the fluids here because these both should be producing refined, which should be the ultimate thing that gets put into this black hole tank, which is that refined. This also is going to have extract on the back. Okay, and so I should be able to place this on top and then simply turn this knob, and now we have crude oil, and with some gates and some upgrades, this should be firing up and should start producing. And then to get the fluids to transfer from one place to another, we'll just do this, just like so. And so now all of this fluid should get poured over here, and there we see tar building up from this and tar building up from this one as well. And then I should be able to place an interface on the back here, and this will allow me to send all of our byproducts directly into our interface. Look at that. Beautiful. You can see the byproducts are leaving. Look at that. And now that I'm back home, I should be able to put this to the test, and we can actually click this on here. And if I hold down Control, I can actually see that we're bringing down the minimum spawn delay by right-clicking that. And we can bring it quite far down, all the way to 40. And same goes for the maximum spawn delay. And this is just going to speed this up so very much. And you can see right here, these things are spawning so much faster now that they are max upgraded like that. It's just ridiculous. And with that, I haven't even adjusted how many can max spawn out of each one of the spawners. That's also another upgrade. And no way I made it just in time to see the antimatter be produced. There is no way I made this back just in time for this. Oh my goodness, what are the chances of that? And there's our first antimatter pellet. By the way, we need 2 antimatter pellets to technically be able to get fully started, but like I said, by the time we take on and do some more research, which by me consuming this, by the way, I just did a little bit of research on this Chaos Guardian. And yeah, we should be able to take on the Chaos Guardian, hopefully next episode, because that is what's going to be the thing holding us back right here. And that's to make the Archium. This right here requires us to take on the Chaos Guardian, get through a little bit of the Chaos Infusion. These large Chaos, by the way, the Chaos Shards do have EMC, so we do have access to all of that. We just have to do it once. So you just have to do it once, and then you have access to all of the Draconic stuff. So next episode, we're going to be diving headfirst into Draconic now that we've researched our antimatter. Oh boy. And we'll definitely have more antimatter pellets by the time we're done. But yeah, we just need 2 to make the anti-protonic nucleosynthesizer, that bad boy. And then you actually get 2 back from the quest, so you can use it for whatever you want, you know, after that. But now with all of that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, whether that was learning about thermal or how you could kind of manage items and route them around, or if it was learning about how to set up the SPS and actually get antimatter produced. If you guys did enjoy and learn something, the least you can do is click that subscribe button and give this video, of course, a huge thumbs up. Comment down below, by the way, what do you think the ultimate fission reactor size is for water? I would love to hear from you down in the comment section below. And yeah, what rate are you actually burning your fizzle fuel at? That is if you've got it done thus far. And so with that, guys, it's now time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Chicken Noodle Soup. It doesn't actually fit, but soup. There we go. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and becoming a supporter in one of the best ways possible. I thank you so very much. Guys, be sure to check out the Discord if you haven't already, and check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/ChosenArchitect, where I do live stream about 3 times a week or so. Sometimes more than that. Depends on what's going on the weekends. But guys, I thank you so very much. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.